Rennie Van Acker, the Dean of Ontario Agricultural College, will be the facilitator of this last session. You've already met Michelle Edwards and Rosita Dara earlier today. So I'll let Rennie introduce himself and get the discussion started. Thank you, Rennie.
I'd like to thank Kane and Cornelia and also Eric for all the work you've done to set this up. A tremendous lineup of speakers, and really enjoyed the day. And I appreciate Rosita and Michelle, you helping us to summarize the day here. I would start that summary by calling it a brave new world. I think we expected that, but maybe even more than we had expected. I would like to turn it over to each of you in turn to provide some key summaries and some key takeaways from the sessions that you were able to attend. And Rosita, maybe if I can go to you first, if you wanted to provide some key summaries and takeaways, and then Michelle, I'll do the same for you.
Michelle can go first because she was in the first session, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I realized she was in the first session, so maybe that would be best.
Sure, all good, all good. No, so not to worry. So first of all, there was no plan that our images matched. Okay, I just have to put that out there because it is kind of awkward looking, but pretty cool. Very anyway, I just want to say, wow, this has just been a fabulous, really lots of information I came across today. So I'm just going to talk about my views and what I saw as some of the themes that kind of came through the different sessions, and then kind of finish off with my overall thoughts on this. First of all, in our first panel, I think the three key pieces that came through were data culture, the value of data, and education. We all saw that there's definitely value to the data, whether it's from the research side, from the industry, or from the producers, being able to take that data and to, provide more insights to it, moving it down that stairwell that Rob had showed us to some sort of predictive abilities in the future. So definitely that value is really important. The data culture, I really hope, I think we all see that there is a data culture. I think we need to continue to move towards changing that culture to a place where people are comfortable sharing their data. I talked about that grad student that, I don't want to be exposed. And I think that shines through in different facets of our industry. On the other side of it, though, we do have a lot of people more than willing to share that data with questions on that as well. The one key underlying piece that I think all three of us saw during that panel was there's definitely a gap in education. So we need to work on that. What was really interesting as I sat through the second panel is those key pieces, those key themes kind of followed through. I saw the word culture being used a number of times, maybe not in the same context that we used it in the first panel, but culture is definitely kind of flowing through all the topics that we talked about. The one statement that came out that really hit home for me is we don't know what we don't know. When it comes to the privacy and security issues, a lot of us don't know, well, what are our next steps? How do we handle that? And I think that's where that education piece comes in again. Definitely a need much more for more education. I love the analogies that Kat and Ritesh used, the mention of the fire drills. We all know that when we hear a fire alarm, like there was on campus yesterday, we know exactly what to do. But if there's a breach in our data, we don't know. We think about the health and safety and examples, right? We know what we need to do in certain situations. Again, we're still not there with the data. That we really need to work on that. I think that's one of the messages that definitely for me came through on that second panel. I just kind of want to conclude my comments because I am coming at it from a different perspective. I think we're at this really cool intersection of time and of space where we're really starting to build that data community in the agri-food sector. We need to continue forging forward with that community, looking to change the current culture, building on that education, finding different ways to educate, including those free resources that were mentioned, but, expanding it even more, creating more value to the data that's being collected and that's being used. I love the idea of being able to tell and showcase those feel-good stories. the data that we've been using across time. I used that 100 years as an example, but being used at the farm level in industry, showing people how we can use that data, give them that feel-good story, so that fear, so we kind of alleviate that fear about sharing the information. So I'm really excited about where we're going, and I'm really excited to look forward to see where we can take this. Over to you, Rosita.
Okay, thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you very much, Rennie. I also want to thank Kane, Eric, everybody who have been involved in organizing this event. It was a very informative and useful event, and I think we need more events like this to raise awareness about cybersecurity and digital ag in general. So I'll try to summarize what I've learned. I wasn't able to attend the first session, the second session, and after. So I've tried to summarize them in a way that it makes sense. So if the discussion on the first session was on data sharing, I know it's quite a hot topic. I do research in that area, and we need new business models, a new way of looking at data to be able to share it. And there are many different stakeholders involved. So we need to satisfy all of them, but absolutely sharing standardized data is the way to go to make advances in digital ag. So today we went over some kind of famous incidents. The different speakers talked about it. For example, grain storage cooperative in Iowa that was hacked by a Russian group of hackers, JBS. AGCO case as correctly pointed out by SIG, and they couldn't figure out what the issue is. So we heard about some of the incidents, but one of the concerns that I have, and I may have been brought up in one of the sessions, is some of the countries have put a system in place that hacks could be reported. Obviously, some of the hacks are not real. It could be false positive, or it may not be an actual hack, but some other ones the government can investigate, and it would be kind of collaboration between the industry and the government. I don't believe C26, which is the Canadian regulation, have that policy. So agriculture is a critical infrastructure, but we are not reporting breaches, which I think this needs to be changed. But the only, because I go to the webinars a lot and they ask me, do you know how many times a day we are being hacked? Probably every day, many times, but we don't know. But the only statistic that I was able to find was they reported in 2022 out of 160 groups that were under the US was monitoring, 13 of them were focused on agriculture industry. So this is a very minimal kind of statistics that I was able to collect. So in terms of cyber threats in agriculture, very briefly, I think speakers talked about the issue around confidentiality, breach of confidentiality, meaning giving unauthorized access through different technical means or process or just an accident to confidential information, changing data integrity, changing data accuracy, which is a major threat, which is also impacting use of artificial intelligence in digital ag, availability of the system. Some of the attacks just focus on making the entire or just some of the devices unavailable. So this is quite a serious attack. Sensor hacks, meaning that hackers will get into the sensor and try to manipulate the data. So obviously it has impact on data integrity. With IoT and increasing the attack surface, meaning that vulnerabilities become more because we have fragmented protocols and systems, and some of them are old. Obviously the attack surface is increasing. One of the, as I speak with, and I think my colleagues the same, speak with many kind of stakeholders, raising awareness about the fact that if you hack one tractor or fleet of tractor, all of a sudden you can get control over the entire the farms within the country or elsewhere. So attacking one system, if it is not designed properly, could give access to a larger devices and infrastructure. An attack to AI, artificial intelligence, is also increasing. So manipulating data, manipulating AI parameters, being able to change the outcome of AI, shutting down sprays, autonomous drones. This is also a rising kind of a threat these days. I'm not sure how much my colleagues, because again, I apologize, I joined late, but touched on this data misuse as looking at it from cybersecurity, because cybersecurity, we look at it usually as a technical perspective, but the legal, social, and other aspects are equally important. From legal perspective, we briefly talked about, data gets collected without, stakeholders' consent, maybe farmers' consent or awareness. There's a lack of transparency. We had an example around hacking that John Deere took accountability around, some of the vulnerabilities that were reported. Not all organizations are accept that accountability. So the legal aspect is important. The misuse of data, for what purpose data gets collected, as one of my colleagues correctly pointed out, there are many regulations that are coming down the pipeline, and they also put their lenses on ethical and responsible use of the technology, why you are deploying this technology, the data that is being collected, why you are collecting, do you really need it? So those are the things that we need to look at. In terms of processing, we have to look at the power imbalance, who is controlling the data, and how the groups who have higher control over data are using it. For example, can the data we collect be used for controlling the market in terms of price, food market? Again, we are talking about food that's so fundamental to our life and health. And so we need to take these things seriously, and we need to do research more. And obviously, ethical use of technology is also is very important, especially given that regulation is coming down the pipeline. So I think given that current regulation in Canada is moving towards protecting some farm data, which are considered personal sensitive, or for farms that are collecting consumer data that is quite sensitive, then AI will apply to it. And that would bring a kind of ocean of change in how systems are being designed, because it has to be transparent. So it comes with a set of requirements that needs to be taken into consideration. And we are talking about agriculture, not only modern farms, but supply chain as well. The type of vulnerabilities, it's not only technology. Obviously, it's a big part, as we have seen in the previous talk. It's around standardization. Michelle talked about data standardization. That's if we cannot integrate systems together, if we cannot integrate data, that's a vulnerability. We had a question about 3G, and if we move to 5G, what's going to happen? Again, that's an interoperability issue. We need to be able to integrate different systems. Fragmented devices, old devices, all of those were mentioned. We also, the statistics shows over 90% of the threats is because of human error, or maybe purposely. So insider threats. So maybe there's a staff within the farm, or maybe there's somebody in the company that doesn't like the mandate and how data is being used. They could, steal data. They could report it to somebody. It could be insider threat, but without, the malicious intention. They don't know how to deal with these kind of stuff. Social engineering, 95% research shows that people cannot differentiate what email is phishing and what is a normal, kind of a trustable email. Phishing campaign malwares, using personal devices at farms or for work purposes. Physical security, many farms have open door, so they can come in, somebody can come in and steal data. So these are all real challenges that we need to look at. First of all, how big the company is it a small farm or an actual large retail? Do they have an IT business? And if they don't, so solution to that these organizations should take towards cybersecurity is different. But definitely that should become a high priority. As my colleagues mentioned, cybersecurity, unfortunately, doesn't make money. So people don't want to invest in it, but, so it has major consequences. So impact on agriculture, obviously, as I mentioned, they can kind of disrupt performance of a tool. Food production could be disrupted, financial loss for any organization that's involved or the farmer, unauthorized access to sensitive data. They may get data and steal IP of how food has been processed, reverse engineer and find out how the food was processed. So this is a very sensitive issue. Maybe farmers, they don't want their identity to be revealed. That's a very kind of legitimate reason to be worried about sensitive information. Again, stealing intellectual property or loss of reputation. So it can go on, kind of with what The impact on agriculture is going to be, in terms of solution, I'll go quickly over. So solution has to be holistic. It cannot be just technology. If we are not providing a secure technology, we don't have any security. That's the foundation. But if we have secure technology, that doesn't mean our system is secure for many different reasons. Technology has to be with privacy by design and security by design in mind, as the example that we saw in the previous session. So that has to be the design thinking. Extensive testing. Many of the technologies are not being tested at farms, so they just, if a farmer adopts it, they may start using it. Some of them are being being used at the farm or the location of for whatever purpose that technology has been built. It has to go through extensive testing, and it has to be improved over time. Open source, especially for agriculture, open solutions is definitely a way forward in the future, but it has its own challenges that, it has to be properly governed. Interoperability, again, technologies are being evolved, but at farm, a farmer might take the technology and use it for many years. So what happens to the issue of interoperability? Because that introduces cybersecurity threats as well. And also taking ownership and accountability for the technology. If it is not working, who would be responsible? If it is hacked and there is a financial loss, who would be responsible? In terms of legal and data agreements, as I mentioned, farmers should be, or whoever, stakeholders within the food supply chain has to be aware of these data agreements. They have to review it and they have to ask proper questions. What data gets collected, as I mentioned, many don't know what other data hidden is being collected, with whom it's being shared, and for what purpose. Data residency, where does it reside? Because Canada, now data has a citizenship and it is being treated accordingly. If they have sensitive information, what they are obligated to do. If they have sensitive information about consumers, we have privacy regulation coming down the pipeline. They should report breaches. So they should be aware of everything. The technology providers have to be transparent about their legal agreement. They have to write it in a transparent manner. It has to be readable so that a 9-year, somebody who's in 7th grade should be able to make sense of those data agreements. So these are best practices that are not used in the Digital Act. So the issues around transparency, inclusion, accountability, readability, so all of those are extremely important to be considered in this. So in terms of process, we talked about it a lot. So what should the farmers do? There are many best practices out there. Security hygiene is absolutely the first step. Other organizations, the same. There are many, so we talked about it a lot, but I think our time doesn't permit for me to go over everything we discussed. But again, the solution to cybersecurity is technology, people, process, policy, all of them have to be combined together. So look at the best practices in terms of protecting farm data. 2 more points. Policy and regulation, this is where I think we are somewhat lagging behind. I'm working with an organization on best practices. Many regions in the not US, I think US does it as well, and the US does, New Zealand does, Australia and Europe. They have best practices. So obviously it's not enforced by the government, but those are best practices that technology providers should adopt and farmers should adopt and other stakeholders should use. And there are standards on how to protect data, how to be transparent. So once the end user, it could be farmers or other within the supply chain, start asking questions and you say, what happened to my data? How are you're using it? How you're collecting? Those best practices will become more common. People, organizations start using it. So it's important to ask questions, and it's important for organizations to start looking at best practices that already exist. And then, so one last thing that we discussed quite a bit on training. So obviously we need to train our staff. We talked about it extensively, and there are many articles online that can be used and say on what aspect do we need to train our staff. What can you do when you're hacked? One of the recommendations that was highlighted, get the contact information of the vendor, of whoever is involved who can help you. Is it the Privacy Commissioner of Canada? Is it the Canadian organization that you can report fraud, or is it the vendor? If your system doesn't need to be attached to, connected to the internet, just pull it, disconnect it immediately. or you may not even need to connect it. If you don't have to connect the system, your tool, don't do it, because it's only going to increase the attack surface. Follow standards, follow hygienes, change your passwords immediately, and then seek help. And also bring, as the previous speakers talked about, penetration tester or ethical hacker. So depending on the budget, you can bring somebody to just quickly go around and look at some of the practices you have for your system, and also in terms of physical security. So ethical hackers, they have so much experience that they can tell you some of the vulnerabilities are, and definitely be prepared. Be proactive rather than be reactive. I think that was a message that was highlighted. And for that, a bit of an education, a bit of an investigation, inventory analysis of what you have, what is sensitive, who's working, access control mechanisms, all of those, if they're addressed proactively, then you won't be surprised. And one key message at the end that I want to, that would be my own message is approach to cybersecurity has to be at the organization level, and it's a teamwork. So there are so many new attacks, so many new technologies. There are so many other aspects that we haven't looked at in terms of data misuse, kind of legal aspect. It is important that government, technology providers, researchers, all of us work together to first of all, join the International Organization on Cybersecurity Standardization, review regulations and see how regulations impact, and maybe, maybe in the future regulations again changes. From the perspective of technology, open access, interoperability, each of them have pros and cons. That's how we can mitigate risk. Just working on our own. I think Finland has an excellent approach. They call it whole society approach to cybersecurity. It's just everybody works together to protect critical infrastructure.
Thank you, Michelle and Rosita. I think those summaries are excellent. And I don't know why the video is not showing up there, but yeah, I think those summaries are excellent, and give us a great overview of the day. I think I should probably pass it for the last time back to Cornelia to wrap us up for the day. So Cornelia, I will turn it to you, and we're just about on time.
There we go. Thank you, Renee, and to Rosita and Michelle for your excellent wrap up of the day today. It has been a busy one, and there are so many things to consider when you're talking about the electronic world as it relates to agriculture and food systems in Canada. So I want to extend my thanks to the 10 excellent speakers today. Great program, and delivered with a new type of an interface here. My thanks also to Eric for all the organization that he put into making this day a success. And my thanks to all of you for joining us on this cybersecurity event. So, Kane is going to host events at a fairly regular pace over the next few years. So if you have any ideas for topics that we can address and provide you with cutting edge information, please send them our way. You can email Eric or myself. So, and again, appreciate the time that you've taken today to be with us, and we'll see you next time.